So I'm here in Krakow, and I'm not going to do like a full tour of Krakow because there are other people who've done that better than I ever could. But I just want to kind of give a brief sort of introduction, like a brief sort of idea of Krakow and why I think Krakow is a great example of urban planning. So first of all, this here, Krakow Główny, this is the main train station. This is the main train station here in Krakow, and right next to it, connected to it underground, in fact, is the Galeria Krakowska, a huge shopping mall. That in itself is a huge triumph because a lot of train stations are isolated. A lot of cities, for whatever reason, put their main train stations just totally in some armpit corner of the city where there's nothing, and you have to walk like 5 miles to get to any kind of decent shopping. But here, you have this shopping mall literally connected to the train station, and this shopping mall is giant. It's indescribably enormous. It is ludicrously large. This shopping mall is insane. And then here you have this monument. It looks to me like the St. Louis Arch, but I don't know if that's intentional. Probably not. It probably has some. I don't know Polish, so I don't know what this text says. I assume it's probably in memoriam of something. Probably something to do with the Holocaust. Basically, if you ever see a memorial in Poland, chances are that it has something to do with the Holocaust. That's the only thing that Polish people make memorials out of. So anyway, so first of all, good start. You have a huge shopping mall, like a shopping mall that's like the size of the sun, right next to the train station. That's a good start. That's good urban planning right there. Have shopping close to transit centers. That seems like something very, very simple to do. It seems very obvious, but a lot of cities don't do that. I don't know why. It seems like such an obvious thing to do. But so many cities, I've been through so many cities where the train station is just nowhere. There's nothing there. And you have to walk an eternity, or you don't have to walk, you can take a bus maybe, but travel an eternity to get to anything worth seeing. Okay, that's point number one. That's a good start. Point number two. You can't quite see it from here because this is not really the old town quite yet. The train station's kind of in the northeastern corner of the old town, so you don't really see it quite yet. But let me go down through this passageway here, and when we come out the other side, maybe you'll see it a little better. It's a little hard to visualize when you're standing in it. It's easy to see on a map, but maybe let's see how it looks when we're actually down here on the ground filming with a camera. Also, people selling books. This guy's selling books. That's awesome. Very good sign. Very good sign when you see books. Always something positive, always something I like to see. Bread. Good bread. I like bread. Bread is very good. Flowers. Nice. Okay, and this is... Here you're about to see a sign of probably my personal favorite thing about Krakow. The Planty Greenbelt. The Planty Greenbelt, ladies and gentlemen, that's literally what it's called. The Planty Greenbelt is just a belt of park that circles the old town. So you're looking at the beginnings of the Krakow Old Town here, and the entire old town is circumscribed by a park that's about this wide. So see, this here is, that's the newer town that's like where there's lots of traffic and stuff like that. And the distance from where I'm standing now to those buildings over there, how far is that? Maybe 100 meters? About 100 meters. So this Planty Park, this Planty Greenbelt, is only about 100 meters thick. It's a belt only about 100 meters thick, but it goes around the entire Old Town. So wherever you are in the Old Town, and the Old Town's not very big, in contrast to that shopping mall, which I said is cavernously huge, which it is, the Old Town is actually very small. The Krakow Old Town is super small. You can walk across it in just a few minutes. It is very small. But it is, once again, encircled by this belt of greenery. And yeah, it could be more green. I'm here in March, and it's, the leaves haven't all come out on the trees yet. Everything's not in full bloom. It's not as beautiful as it could be. But even now, it looks nice. And the point is, you always have a place to sit down. Unlike some cities where it's hard to find a good park, sometimes you have to walk a long way to find a place to sit down. Like in Venice, good grief. In Venice, I literally could not find a place to sit down. One bench I sat down on, some guy came to me and said, "This is a private bench, you can't sit here." On another bench where I sat down, as soon as I sat down, I was surrounded by like 5 musicians playing music and trying to get money from me because they were playing music. Like, you can't find a peaceful place to sit down at all in Venice. But here, wherever you go in the Old Town, the Planty Belt is not far away. The Planty Belt is always at hand, or at foot, because it encircles the whole town. And the town is so small that no matter where you are, you don't have very far to walk to get to a Planty Belt, to a part of the Planty Belt where you can sit down. That is awesome. That is the best idea. That is the best concept of urban planning that I have ever seen or heard or experienced in any city in my life. And I have been, believe me folks, I have been to every major European city. I have been to London, I have been to Paris, I have been to Rome, I have been to Berlin, I've been to Moscow, I've been, the list goes on. I've been to them all. All great places in their own way, but none of them have an urban planning concept as elementary and yet as brilliant as Krakow's Planty Belt. And no matter where you go in this town, in this old town, you can always go there if you need some peace, if the tourist crowds get to be too much for you, if you get tired of seeing tours of Auschwitz, you get tired of all the, the bustle and the crowd of the city center. Just take a few steps to the Planty Belt, sit down, get some rest among the trees and the birds singing. It's great. It's fantastic. And I'm not going to talk too much about the architecture of the city. I mean, it is a beautiful city. Krakow is the most touristy city by far, by a huge margin. It is the most touristy city in Poland. So there's a lot of touristy stuff here. And I'm not going to try to cover it all. Like I said, this is not a full walkthrough of all of Krakow. You can find better sources for that elsewhere. But you can see it has a very beautiful old town. It is a beautiful city, a wonderful city. I love being here in Krakow. It's much better than Warsaw. Much better than Warsaw. In Warsaw, there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. In Krakow, there's everything. And the only thing I don't like about Warsaw is, again, it is kind of touristy. If you don't like touristy places, then the huge mobs of tourists will get to you after a while. They get to me after a while. They do bother me after a while. I do find it a little too touristy. So yeah, that's the only thing I don't like about it. But other than that, Krakow is great. You have everything you need. It's so compact. It has everything you need. You want to go shopping? The mall's right there. The universe's biggest shopping mall is right there next to the train station. You want to travel somewhere? The train station's there, next to the huge mall. You want to find, you want to sit down somewhere? The planty belt is always there. Not far away at all is a belt of greenery. And it's, like I said, it's very thin. It's a ring only about 100 meters wide, which is fairly narrow. But it's enough. It's just wide enough to isolate you from the craziness and the traffic of the broader Krakow area. But it's narrow enough that if you need to walk across it, you can. You can walk across the planty belt easily. But it's just wide enough that it, if you're there, it isolates you from the noise of the old town and the new town. I'm just going to go to the center. I'm just going to walk to the center so you can see the city center once. I mean, people would say this is the city center, yeah, but I'm going to the center of the center, like the very center of the city center where you have this huge church and the nice central square there. I'm just going to show that once. It's similar to, in other Polish cities, it's similar to the central square in Poznan, similar to the central square in, a bunch of cities, a bunch of Central Eastern European cities which were kind of built on a German model. I mean, Krakow is fundamentally it was very strongly shaped by its Austrian history because it used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is probably why it has an architecture that kind of leans more in that direction. It's not specifically a Polish city. I mean, it is a Polish city, of course, but it's not just a Polish city. It has a colorful and diverse history. I don't know where that trumpet player is, or why that trumpet player is, but the trumpet player is, sadly enough. Okay, and this is it. This is the central square of Krakow. Now, I'm not going to say it's the most beautiful central square in the world. You could argue there are more beautiful central squares, maybe the one in Venice. I mentioned Venice. Okay, the one in Venice is certainly more famous. And there are other, I'm not going to list every central square in the world, but I mean, you could argue there are other more beautiful central squares. But are there really? I mean, there might be other central squares that are as beautiful, kind of on the same level. But again, I've been to every major city of Europe pretty well, and I'm not sure that I would gauge or rate any central square in any European city as more beautiful than this. As beautiful, maybe, yes. Okay, the one in Venice, sure. Vatican City, yeah, okay. Kind of on the same level, I'd say. But better, more beautiful, more striking, more stunning than this? I don't know. I would be hesitant to say that, honestly. Krakow is great, man. It's great. What a great city. It's not just a beautiful city. It's not just a clean city and, safe and all that. It has the best urban planning of any city ever. Because again, if these crowds get to be too much for you, if you get tired of the horses galloping around and the people selling ice cream and playing trumpet and whatever, you want to get some peace and quiet. Like 10 minutes walk away from anywhere in this city center is the planty belt. You go there, you sit down, you have a rest. That's awesome, man. Seriously, Krakow is just the best city in Poland for tourists. No contest. Okay, I'm done. That's all I really wanted to show and say about Krakow. So thanks for watching, everyone. Greetings from Krakow. Hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you all later. So I'm on the way home from Krakow, where I was yesterday, and I've made a brief stop here in Katowice, which is not far from Krakow. And I always found Katowice interesting because it's not that big of a city in terms of overall size of the city itself. Like, it's not a really huge city, but the Katowice metropolitan area, some kind of a recycling container for bottle caps. You know, some places gather bottle caps because often bottles get recycled but not the caps. There's some kind of a gathering of bottle caps because people love Katowice. And yeah, as you can see, it's snowing. It was yesterday when I was in Krakow, it was 18 degrees Celsius there, which is, I don't know, figure out what is that in Fahrenheit, maybe like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty warm, almost like normal room temperature. And now today in Katowice, we're just not far from Krakow, you can see it's snowing. So I don't have a lot to say or show about Katowice. I'm just here for a short stopover. The train station's right over there. That's the train station there. I just got off the train there and I'm going to get on another one soon. But just wanted to show what Katowice is like for anybody who's curious, because this is kind of a neglected city. It's a city that doesn't get much attention. What I was saying, sorry, I think I didn't finish that thought. The Katowice metropolitan area, not the city itself, but like the larger metropolitan area that surrounds it, is the largest in Poland. It's kind of funny how that works sometimes. You know, sometimes a city, like the city itself, the city proper within city limits, city boundaries, doesn't get that big, but then a really huge metropolitan area develops around it. And that's the case here. Like I said, the city's not that big. I think statistically Katowice is only the 11th largest city in Poland. So it just barely got shut out of the top 10. But again, the metropolitan area, the larger, suburban area surrounding it, is the largest in all of Poland. And that doesn't always mean a lot. Very often, these kinds of statistics are affected by rather arbitrary drawing of boundaries. I mean, really, where does the city end and the metropolitan area begin? That's just, somebody drew some line on a map and said, that's the city limits, that's the end of the city of Katowice. And so, those boundaries are pretty arbitrary. They don't necessarily mean a lot. But yeah, I just wanted to stop here briefly. There's not a lot to Katowice. It's not a very touristy city. Not a lot to really recommend it to tourists, I would say. Doesn't seem like a bad place, but just kind of generic. I don't know that I would really recommend coming here. I mean, obviously the weather is not putting the city in its best light today, but even if it were sunny and the temperature were nicer, I don't know. It looks to me like pretty much any other Polish city. You've got the train station there, you've got a central shopping district, which is where I am now. You've got a central square, which looks like this is what I'm coming up on now, just, like a central square area here with a couple of larger buildings around it, probably a church somewhere in evidence. And that's pretty much it, honestly. So yeah, and there's some tall business buildings there where important people do their work. People working in banks or energy companies or IT startups or whatever people in those big tall buildings do. And yeah, the rest of this is just, it's just another Polish city. Nothing wrong with that, but I wouldn't, unless I'm really missing something, I wouldn't necessarily recommend a stop over here. I wouldn't say it's a place you gotta see. You gotta see Katowice. It's so great. So yeah, greetings from Katowice. I think this will be my last video on this trip, because after this I'm just going home. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. I'll talk to you all later.